What's up, YouTube? So today I'm going to carry on our track from scratch, and this bass line that I added in was from the episode that I recently put out about how to actually make a bass line in Serum. I figured I'm going to put that in its own whole episode because there were some more advanced topics, and I didn't want to kind of like slow down the momentum of this series. So I'm just going to kind of jump in and work with more kind of arrangement and group stuff today, and I want to focus in a little bit more on just creating kind of like sound effects and that kind of thing, because once we have a bunch of those, the overall arrangement will kind of start to fall into place a little bit easier. So what I mean is like this kind of delayed vocal effect that we created. I want to make various different variations of that and use a lot of the sounds that we already have here to kind of just iterate a couple of different sound effects, things that we can kind of use throughout. So I also just want to talk a little bit about groups and kind of how I usually set things up a little bit. So the kick I will have in its own group, just because I might have other channels doing like kick effects and that kind of thing, but also because I've got a sidechain template already set up coming from this group. And now if we add in, for example, like a kick 3 or a Serum creating the kick drum or something else, we don't have to reset up all of the sidechains in the project. It's just coming from the group. So as long as something's in the group, it's being sent to the sidechain, if that makes sense. So there'll be this subgroup, and then I'll create another subgroup here. Let's just call this main bass. And then I will put these two together in a group. I'll call it kick and bass, or keyba for short. And so for arrangement purposes, this also just makes it easier because we can just drag this whole chunk around if we need, or we can kind of duplicate it and that kind of thing. So this sample here, the psychedelic tradition, I kind of want to isolate just this. And then let's create like another channel here. Let's just say duplicate this. And then we're going to select them all and then just move this down to this channel. And so now we've kind of isolated just this. And now we can kind of change these effects and stuff. And then we're going to render it out as its own sample. Let's just remove some of this automation from the duplicated lane. Yeah, I think at that lower tempo it kind of sounds cooler because it kind of goes on for a bit longer as well. So now we can make this, consolidate this into like a larger clip, and then we can just render this out just like that. And then if we just mute this, now we have this, which we can like reverse, chop, create fade outs. It's a little bit easier to work with these kind of longer delay things as audio. This kick has, with a reverb, actually, we might want like a little bit of a break here. Or maybe we go here. I maybe want to render this out as a larger clip, and then also maybe just put some EQ. The sound as well that we created with this massive reverb, I also want to do a similar thing with this. Rather than loop it over and over again, I just want to have this reverb kind of like delaying out for a while, and then we can play with the tail of that reverb. I like doing that with these kind of more effecty pad sounds. We can actually create a larger clip than that, because the delay goes out forever on this. Pretty sick. So like with these kinds of things, I might want to use this later. So what I'll often do is just put these together in a group. Let's just call this Atmos. Oh, what have I done? We can mute this though, because we don't need this one anymore, because we've now rendered it to audio. What I often do is I'll press Alt-A, and that disables the track, and then there's a setting here called Show Deactivated Tracks. And so it's a nice way of like keeping the stuff in case you want to edit it later, but also like taking it out of mind's eye. Do you know what I mean? The reason I group this is because now also we can just duplicate it like this, reverse the clip, and create like riser type things out of the sound, and kind of keep everything within a group. But at the same time, then if we want to like EQ it, we can just put an EQ here and it EQs everything. You know, we can process it on the group and it does it to everything of that same sound, right? With this one, I want to actually start low and go like, not. And so this is why it's kind of cool to have this all linked to macros, because now we can kind of create our own custom envelope and filter sweep just by changing the modulation or the automation pattern, right? Okay, so I'm just making some folders here, which we can put like the more sound effecty things into that, like the vocals and that kind of stuff. This reverb kick can also go in there. Oh yeah, this is that granular vocal thing. You can actually put some of the hidden tracks in there as well. I'll just put all of these into a group, and then we can name them accordingly, like another subgroup here called leads. Okay, I think what could be cool here is like some kind of minimal hits, like maybe like a chord sound, and then something, you know, something maybe harmonious, and then something kind of random in pitch. Okay, so what I think could be really cool here is like a sort of more minimal arrangement of two sounds, something a bit more harmonious and something a little bit more atonal. So something like a simple chord hit contrasted with something like a sample hold sine wave type of sound. So what I usually do is, like, when I have something like that in mind, I will kind of start crafting them together and then jump into one, fine-tune the sound, and jump into the other and fine-tune the sound. Just because, like, the context of them is kind of together, so it'll help to write them together. So, like, listen to the track and think, like, okay, where then the kind of chord can come in like then, like offbeat, if you know what I mean. And then afterwards, then kind of thing like that could be pretty cool. But I mean, we can change it, you know, it'll just help to have context while we're writing the sound. And so again, like I was explaining, the note transpose comes in real handy here because we can kind of just copy it to all of the channels that we're writing on, and we can just write in C and it should be relevant, right? Let's create a tight envelope on the sound. So like turn the sustain down quite a bit and then decay down quite a bit. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So it's just that thunk and then a longer sustain. Okay, let's give it some high pass filter. Cool, maybe a big reverb. This convolve is really, really cool because there's some pretty good impulse responses built in here. You can load your own. With these, I often find myself making just single hits though, because these reverbs can be so long. I'll make that as like a single hit, so I'll kind of design the sound around that. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of nice to sweep in that high pass filter like after the hit, so it kind of just sweeps that reverb tail in a bit. I wonder what happens if we kind of strum these instead of just playing the chord. In fact, we can use strum, the Bitwig effect. Perhaps we can make one more traditional chord that comes like here, but without too much of that reverb and those kinds of effects, right? I think actually this one should come first and then this one. Okay, so with these kinds of things, like these more atonal sample and hold type of things, I'll usually just go with like a sine wave and then set the LFO to the coarse pitch. And then instead of using the chaos or like sample and hold random, I'll actually use this random flat. Reason being is that it's a lot more deterministic. We can kind of keep randomizing until we find a sound that we want, and then it loops. It's not just like always random and then resample and then that kind of thing. It's the workflow of this is just a little bit easier. And it snaps to this grid size. So if we set it to 16 and then say random flat, then we get faster values, right? Let's go with like higher frequencies mainly. And then I like to modulate the smooth in sometimes, because that can give us a little bit more of a kind of natural random sound. And then maybe just some like delay on there, and we're off to the races. Okay, so let's just take off this delay for a second. Then what I'll usually do is just find a couple that I like. And then let's maybe do one with some modulated. Let's just record in some automation here. And then one flat, and then we can just bounce them, and then we drop them over here, right? And then we can just delete them out the timeline. And then let's keep going. Let's say loop just this part here. And then we can just keep randomizing until we get another cool shape. That one is actually pretty cool. So then let's bounce out with smooth and without. And then we can just drop it onto this same channel that we did before, and then just remove this channel again. That one's pretty cool as just like a looped effect. Okay, that should be enough for now. And then we can just put these two into a group so that we always have the serum if we need it. We can mute it and then disable. And then let's just put the delay on here. And then we can arrange as needed. So here we can say, okay, let's put this one and then this one. Do you know what I mean? Let's maybe put a limiter here before the delay, just because some of those hits do peak out a little bit hard. So usually around here, like before the sort of 3-minute mark, I'll start to create like my first breakdown to a drop. And I feel like this is a good part because we already have this kind of, it feels like something is about to change here. We've created that momentum to the point where it feels like we're leading into something. So it's a good spot here to kind of progress into like a breakdown or something like that. So we can use this effect that we had from earlier. Same thing as this reverbed kick. And let's maybe use this lead as well. And maybe there we can start like a kick roll. Da, 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 da. Cool, that sounds like a good natural arrangement where we kind of build up, we break down to the point where it's like we have that same lead coming in, but with a bit more momentum, then building and building and then breaking down again. And I like to do these kind of things where you extend the bar a little bit into the break before the drop. So it's like here, it's 4 bars. You think the drop is going to happen and then it extends a little bit longer. And you think it's going to happen again, extends a little bit longer. Then the drop happens. Really, really good stuff. Anyway, that about sums up everything I wanted to get through in this video. Yeah, if you enjoyed that, let me know in the comments. If you want me to carry this series on in future episodes, then let me know. And yeah, if you haven't yet, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. And if you want to support me, the best ways to do so are either on Patreon or check out some of the stuff on my store. The link is in the description. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.